Hey everybody, this is Jim Kurtz with Harmonics, and today on our Ask an Expert show, we have Raul Lopez, the CEO of Aloe Queen and one of the largest aloe vera distributors here in the United States. And we wanted him to join us today because he's got a lot of experience dealing with not only the growing side of the aloe vera and other types of crops, but he's got a very large background in the produce industry, both in the United States and Mexico. So we wanted to kind of get his take on some of the issues that are happening both here in the States and also in Mexico, and see if we can help clarify a few things that maybe some people have been wondering about. So first of all, Raul, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here, see what I can learn or see if I can share anything that I've learned myself throughout the years. Being here on the border and being involved in Mexico, we've been there for 30 some odd years, and I think we've seen just about all we can in Mexico. So different regions, different parts of Mexico. So yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so first, just give us a little background. I mean, you mentioned 30 years in the produce industry. Is most of that in farming or like the distributing, packing? Like what is your experience in terms of the produce market?
Well, when we first got involved in the ag industry in Mexico, we were a produce broker. Then we went and became a produce importer. We were pretty much specializing in ethnic foods, the peppers, the green tomatoes. We call them tomatillos. Everything that the Mexican market would use, and we'd ship. But we'd bring it through Mexico from Mexico, and we'd ship all over the country. So we were doing that for a while, and we were also the first ones to introduce aloe vera fresh leaves to the produce industry. We were selling them in 30-pound boxes, and you can walk into any produce section of any major Walmarts or HEBs or any grocery store, and you'll find it now there as a staple item. They price them on a per piece basis. They're barcoded, so they sell them just like they would a watermelon or anything like that. So we started that back in around 1990. So we were selling it fresh. And then what we did eventually, we said, you know what, let's see if we can do some kind of value added to it. So we got into the processing end of it. We had people approach us, say, hey, since you've got access to aloe vera farms in Mexico, which we were farming in partnership with some farmers, so we wouldn't get involved in the day-to-day activities. We partnered up with some local farmers, and we provided them the seeds and whatnot. Well, in the case of the aloe, they're pups, the little plants, and we provided those from South Texas. And Mexico started growing it for us, and then we decided at that point to go ahead and do some extractions, and we started getting in more value added to it. We started doing the extraction of the inner gel, and we started making juice out of it, and then we eventually concentrated it. Then we stepped up, and we eventually ended up making powder out of it. So that's how we ended up to where we're at now. And right now, pretty much we are bulk distributors throughout the country. We do a lot of exporting also in the aloe vera. Just to give you an idea, we went from, let's say, 50 pounds a day. We kept growing, and now we're doing 1,500 tons a week in 3 different plants in Mexico. So we have a big consumption of aloe. And we also have a new project going up in Guatemala. Hopefully we'll be, it's all ready to go. There's 250 hectares of drip irrigation aloe vera. And we should start processing, hopefully have our first batches of product from Guatemala, maybe somewhere around September, October of this year. And so that's going to add to our overall volume. Okay. And
Nice.
But throughout the years, besides that, we did do peppers. We grew peppers. We grew squash. We grew things that were pretty much. We did some Chinese vegetables. We did a little bit of broccoli, but that was about the time we decided to just dedicate all our time on aloe vera. Okay.
Nice. So on the aloe vera side, obviously, and as you mentioned, I never saw the aloe vera plants, the leaves, until about maybe 10 years ago. I started seeing it in the supermarkets, and I would take them, and we used to put them in smoothies and make shakes with them, and stuff. They tasted good in this. So give us an idea. And I know, you and I started talking probably in December, and I think, COVID from last year is still actually sort of playing a big role down in Mexico too, correct?
Well, yeah, because of the availability of the vaccines. As a matter of fact, I've had a lot of friends come over from Mexico and Guatemala, and they've asked us, "Hey, can you help us get some vaccines? Because we don't have any hope here. We're going to get it anytime soon, especially the guys from Guatemala." So these guys is a company that does our organic certification. They certify pretty much a lot of countries throughout Central and South America, and they were hoping that they were going to get vaccines in their countries, but they never did, and they're just barely starting to get them. So yeah, and they've had spikes just alone in our community down there in one particular community in Puebla. We had 20 people a day dying in a population of 150,000. That gives you an idea. These were the ones that were dying, not necessarily the ones that were infected. And it's still going on. It's piped down a little bit, but they're getting surges suddenly. And right now, I think they're getting a little mini surge. So it's very unstable still because the vaccine is still not by any means circulating over there. And the government information feedback is not accurate. They tell you that they're doing 20%, and they're really not doing 20. They're doing 7, 8%. So the people out there are the ones. We've had issues with our workers. I've had several of them that got real sick, and we had to provide them some finances so they can get oxygen from other communities and whatnot. But none of them died from my organization down there. So we're happy about that. Thank God for that. Yeah. But yeah, it's still there. It's still but the people over there, they don't get stimulus checks like we do here. They don't get any kind of help. No extended. There ain't such thing as unemployment. So they have to work. They have to work to provide food for the kids and bring food to the table, pay their bills. So, but they're reluctant when they have to go out there with that high risk. But they've managed to survive, and they're moving right along. But we're helping them as much as we can. Okay. So that's kind of helped. That affected us a little bit last year, but nonetheless, even taking that in consideration, we as a company had a boom last year because of the hand sanitizer. They use aloe vera in the formula, and we also were manufacturing a lot of hand sanitizer ourselves in our facility in McAllen, Texas. So it was good for some people, and it was bad for some other people. But overall, we're moving along. We're moving along, and Guatemala is the same way. But there's nothing we can do other than help them whenever they get sick. And we took all the precautionary measures that we learned from the U.S. We did over there. We did separation, like in our production line, where normally they would be right up against each other. We had to separate them, and masks and hand sanitizers and testing and all that, and that's helped. We've had a limited amount of people get sick on us compared to other facilities. I know a lot of other people have gotten real sick, but we're trying to learn everything we can from the States, and we went ahead and spread that some of that information to our facilities in Mexico.
Very good. And just so you know, guys, if you're watching the stream here with us live, if you have questions for Raul or for myself, either one, just type them in the comments in the chat here. We'd like to answer your questions here in the stream here. So feel free to ask whatever questions you have, and we'll do our best to answer them for you guys as well. And Raul, one other question. This is a question I've been hearing a lot from farmers around the United States, and that is the availability of migrant workers, because that's a big, it's a hot button politically, but beyond that, that's a big part of the farmers' business here is workers that come from Mexico or come from other places and work on the farms during the season, and then sometimes they go back home, or sometimes they shelter here in the United States. So in your opinion, have you noticed any big changes since COVID in terms of the flow of workers back and forth?
Yes, definitely. Yes, there's normally workers that, and we see them right here is the epicenter here in McAllen. I mean, we see people coming and going all the time. They come through here to go work in the fields in the U.S., And there during last year, when Trump was in office, um, there was a lot of shortage of people because they were really shut down. They couldn't come across. There was some very strict rules as far as code were concerned. So they would pretty much keep them in Mexico, like the stay in Mexico policy he had. They'd stay there. A lot of them try to come, and they'd catch them and they'd send them right back. It was all because of COVID, where normally they would, sometimes get some permits to be able to work, but it was very tough last year for them. So yeah, there is a shortage now. Believe it or not, even in Mexico, since we had a lot of Central Americans come to Mexico and they were held up at the border, we developed an abundance of labor there in Mexico. As a lot of these Central and South Americans would come and they would look for work. Meanwhile, they were waiting to cross into the U.S. But you know, we did okay with that because, believe it or not, normally a lot of the people from Mexico, when they go to the States, they go out there, they work, they'll come back to Mexico. This time they didn't have that freedom of going back and forth, because if they went back to Mexico, they weren't going to come back in. So they stayed in the U.S., a lot of them. And therefore, good thing there was a lot of these Central Americans that were stopped at the border. So we started using some of those folks from Ecuador, from Salvador, from Honduras. And of course, we were selective. We just wouldn't hire anybody. And but we had our share. We were okay. We never lacked any workers. But those same guys were the ones that would have been in the States. So I presume that there was a shortage in the U.S. for some of these folks that do a lot of the ag work in the produce producing states in the U.S. Because a lot of them do depend on folks from Central and South America.
Yeah, and there's some farmers that were complaining to us about the fact, because we're obviously with our product and with our technology, we're saying, hey, we can increase your crop yields, we can improve the quality, and they're telling us, like, I don't have anybody to pick it, I don't have anybody to harvest
exactly.
it. So yeah, it doesn't benefit me to produce 20% more yield if I don't have anybody to pick it.
If it's gonna stay there, you won't be able to harvest it. Yeah, because the flow stopped. That flow that goes and comes stopped. I think the Trump administration knows that it was important, and they would have. He was letting them go, knowing that some of these folks would work in the produce section or in the vegetables and the ag industry, but because of COVID, that was a game changer. He stopped them unless they smuggled themselves through and they got across. But for the most part, those just wouldn't been able to come across. The border was literally shut down, going and coming. It's still shut down. For the average folk that wants to come across, they cannot. The only way you can come into the States is if you fly in through an airport. But if you try to drive through the border right now, it's still shut. You cannot cross legally. Okay, now you see differently on TV because it is happening, and they're still streaming across like crazy. But that's because they're the open border policy kind of thing that's going on right now with the new administration. It's the legitimate ones that want to come across can come. They can drive across, but the ones that are here illegally, they're the only ones that are crossing.
Yeah,
almost at will. Like, hey, I mean, and we see it here. We're at the border. I mean, we see it, and it's for real. What you see on TV is for real. And so they're moving north, and I presume they're going to end up working in the ag industry as they keep moving, because once they come across, they're relocating them all over the country. So we don't know where they're going, and I presume a lot of will end up in the agricultural. I don't know what they'll do in the winter when there's not much agricultural, but right now they're headed that direction. So I think they'll be okay. They'll have plenty of workers, unless they're somewhere doing something else and getting some kind of help. But they need to work. If they're going to come here, they need to work, and they're going to start working, I presume. I don't use it on the border because we don't do any production or any farming here in the border, on the U.S. Here are headquarters. All we do is just the marketing end of it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. And then kind of one of the last things I wanted to touch on is obviously, you and I have been talking back and forth, and I just wanted to kind of announce, you're one of our newest dealers here. with a dealership here for Harvest Harmonics. You're going to help us spread our Cuminasi plant booster technology down into Mexico, where obviously we want to help all the produce that's grown in Mexico become as healthy and viable as possible. So if you happen to have farmers here that are looking at this or taking a look at Cuminasi and saying, well, whether they're in Mexico or here in the States, like what would you tell them in terms of the decision that they should make on their farm as far as taking advantage of this opportunity?
Well, I've since we started talking, I've been spreading around the information. I've talked to some of the folks that are in the agricultural industry, especially folks that are involved in associations. I'm talking, and I've talked to the folks in my industry, and they're all excited about it, especially besides increasing their yield. Right now, an aloe vera field, you get if it's well farmed, you can average about 125 tons a year per hectare. Well, that's because they cut like 2 or 3 times a year. I'm expecting that they'll be able to cut at least 4 times a year because the aloe vera is a perpetual plant or perennial. You just cut leaves from it and it stays there. You never end up chopping it down, or it's a permanent plant. You cut the big leaves and then you let the little ones grow, and then you come back and cut those, and then the next ones keep growing. We're hoping and we're pretty confident that we'll be able to cut more often and the plant will grow faster. Not only that, we also seek what we call the polysaccharide counts, and that's related to the Brix. And according to the results on other products, especially in the grapes, you see where that Brix goes up. And the higher the Brix, the better we are, because we'll use less leaf, especially when we concentrate our juices. Our feed streams, we averaging about 1 Brix, and if we can bump it up to 1.2 Brix, you would not believe what that would do to our bottom line, because it's less tonnage that we would have to process. And so we're anxious to see the results as far as the Brix is concerned. That's one thing we fight for all the time, is more Brix. So that is one area, the aloe. But we're also talking to some folks into the pepper business. And according to the results that I've seen with the plant booster, we're thinking that is going to be also a big plus for them. So we're going to start with a pepper business. We're going to do the aloe because we're directly involved in that every day. And we're also going to do okra. We have a big okra organization that's excited about it. And we have some squash people. We're also we're going to target the broccoli industry, the asparagus industry, and some of the berry industries. And I think we're excited about that because the people we've reached out to, they're all excited about it, and they're anxious to start doing at least some testing on an hectare here, an hectare there. And I think we're going to get them all. I'm hoping that we can definitely in the next couple of months have quite a bit of them already, at least on the testing stage, so we can start seeing some results and documenting the results.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing all the results. We saw all the results down in South America. I'm looking forward to having all of Mexico start showing us the same number of results as well.
I agree with you, and I'm excited about it too. And we're going to document everything. As you remember, at that conference, we're going to try to get a local university also. We're going to provide them with a pipe so he can go ahead and they can do some testing there. And we'll have a university that's going to, at that level, they're going to be planning, they're going to be documenting it. And so that's going to be, it's going to have a lot of credibility because the students are going to be there daily. They're going to be watching it. They're going to be photographing it. They're going to be measuring. So that's going to give us some good feedback and some good data that you're looking for.
Absolutely. That's farm after farm after farm that's getting good results, but having the actual scientific data is going to handle even the skeptical guys that sometimes are want to wait, but that's totally fine. We're not going anywhere, so we're real happy about that. But really, I think that's about it. I don't see any questions here from our audience here. We've got several guys on here, but Raul, I guess I'll leave it up to you. Anything else you'd like to talk about here today?
Well, I would think, and I guess if some of the folks listening, we want to see how long does it take to actually start seeing some results that are quite noticeable in any particular produce? Because we're going to try to get into different varieties of produce, and the first thing they're going to ask me is, how soon will I see some results, or at least starting to see some results? I know we're not going to immediately give them some results, but can you more or less give me some ideas when we can expect to see some results?
Yeah, it depends obviously on the type of plant. Like trees sometimes take a little longer, but typically we start seeing in the plant itself within 1 to 2 weeks, we start seeing noticeable results. Like the leaves will turn greener. They'll start to grow healthier. Obviously, different plants have different metabolisms, but typically within 1 to 2 weeks, you'll start to see it in the plant itself. And then, obviously with harvesting and stuff like that, that's what most people really pay attention to. That just depends on the crop also. Like some crops are 4-week crops, and other ones are like a whole season. So, but you'll definitely start to see differences even in the soil. If you do soil tests, 2, 3, 4 weeks, it doesn't take that long.
Great. Well, that's great, because everybody's anxious, so we're looking forward to it. Yes.
Great. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Raul. I appreciate having you on here.
Thank you very much.
And appreciate having you on as a dealer, as well. We were looking forward to Mexico and seeing these guys flourish and prosper. I know, like you mentioned earlier, with COVID and everything else, God knows a lot of those guys need the help, and we're happy to help them out.
Well, and another thing that in certain parts of Mexico, there's some droughts. So we're gonna, we know that you can optimize the less amount of water in Mexico, some of these zones in Mexico. So that's going to help, because they're limited with the amount of water. So might as well optimize that water, that the scarce water. So that's going to help too. So I think we're definitely on the right track.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Raul. I appreciate having you on today. Thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned again next week. We're having our Future of Farming Today webinars, and we're also going to have Ask a Farmer with one of our farmers and our almond growers here in California. Ben Hardister is going to be joining us on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, have a great weekend, guys. Thanks again, Raul, for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Okay, you too. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.